HMR here. And in this video, I want to talk about what happens when you're in a relationship, or you have been, or you're in the midst of being on and off again with somebody with borderline personality disorder. The devalue and the breakup. And then can you get back to being idealized again? And how does that go? Because really, and I've always been saying this here, the cycles speed up every time. So if there's a breakup, and then they hoover, or however the getting back together happens, and you take them back, hoping and thinking that things can change, of course, etc. The next thing you know, you're going to find out that they don't really get back to idealizing you at all. It's more where they're coming from a place of need. And again, that object other representation that you really represent. And they don't have identity without you. So in these on and off again breakups, whether they last a short period of time, the breakup, or a longer period, whether a person goes and is with someone else or not and comes back when it doesn't work out type thing, which could be a month, could be weeks, could be a month, could be 2 months, could be longer, but usually isn't. Every time you allow yourself to be hoovered back into a relationship, or you engage in trying to get them back to come back to you, then the cycles, they don't really get back to that peak idealization like the beginning, number one. And number two, so wouldn't even say it's accurate to really say they idealize you again. They don't. You're just now familiar, which is a trap for you on two levels, because the familiarity is on one hand comfortable. The familiarity on the other hand is very triggering and scary, with their fear of abandonment, attachment, in unstable attachment patterns, etc. So the more that you are on and off again with somebody with BPD, and the caveat is not all people are the same, but people without enough treatment, or people that still, even if they have had some treatment, they can't make a commitment. They want to be in the relationship, but probably still not for the right reasons emotionally. So they might, there's mutual attraction, but they don't have comfort in the relating or the attaching, and the love still isn't healthy enough. And again, I'm not saying all people with BPD are the same. Caveat here for those who like to keep on sending me your weird comments in the background, that people don't see out there. But the point is, so if you get back with them, the first time you're gonna, things are great. It's like you go back to it, feels probably like you're being idealized again. But the point is, you're really probably not like you were before. And then what's going to happen is more devaluation, or subsequent devaluation with each cycle of getting back together. It's going to happen more frequently. So whatever the person in your life with BPD that you may be on and off again with, and they may hoover and you take them back, and then a breakup and then you take them back, kind of thing, however many times that might occur, what people really need to know for sure is that these cycles are going to get shorter and more intense. So if the person with BPD rages, or if they give you the silent treatment, if they're quiet, borderline, if they're acting out, there's other different, differences as well. But that's going to happen much more intensely, much more frequently. The dysregulated moods are going to be much more often and frequent than maybe the first time around. And you're hoping for that to change. And then you have to ask yourself again, based on what are you hoping for that to change? So the cycling around with the on and off again, or the taking the person with BPD back, maybe you get discarded or ghosted, and then they come back and they hoover and you take them back. The reason why that's really not in anybody's best interest, not even the person with BPD, because they still need to go and get treatment. They still need to work some stuff out, right? Because they're still not relationship ready, not adult, healthy relationship ready. And so they're coming from a greater place of need, a lot of needs actually that weren't met in childhood, and that they haven't been able to meet. And with their emotional dysregulation, then there's the approach avoidance conflict, and there's the fear of abandonment, but along with the attachment issues. So they really, really might want to be with you. But again, now some with BPD can't really be faithful. So they go off and have to be, and that's not everybody, but some. And that's not always the reason why they leave. But whatever, but what it is it's these repetition compulsion triggers, emotional the emotional dysregulation when triggered, they always go back to the so the age regress and the emotional arrested development, and they haven't developed that known sense of self or stable identity. They're always going to go back to that very young childlike place. And then they're going to be like maybe punishing, acting out, raging, ghosting again, so it's off again. And this just can end up happening sort of like for some every day or every week or many times a month, and it's just on again, off again. And for those of you who are the loved ones of these people with BPD, and you know, if what I'm saying doesn't apply to you or the person in your life with BPD, then please don't think I don't know who's watching. So I'm just trying to give a broad, well, not response even, but just to broadly speak on the subject, that with many, high percentage of people with BPD, they haven't been treated, or even with treatment if they haven't done the deeper work. Because a lot of people who are getting treatment with DBT skills and they're learning a lot more, like I said, it's up here, not filtering so much down into the emotional landscape. A lot of them stop having relationships. A lot of them start isolating a little more, or just realizing they need to stay on their own for further growth, if in fact they believe they can recover, right? Because a lot of them don't, but they're not all the same. But these cycles of on again, off again get more frequent, more intense. So the breakups happen faster. The damage that you're accruing is going to be greater and greater. And you love this person and you're just asking for more and more and more pain. I mean, not consciously, you're not. But the fact is that when they break up with you, and that first evaluation is huge because you will never get back to the same place again. So the way that people with BPD treat you after, like with every recycle of after the off being on again in a relationship or a dating relationship, then they're going to treat you worse each and every time. And there's a myriad of reasons for that, but I'm not going to go into some of the most detailed things in videos anymore unless it's really, because it's hard to do, because not everybody with BPD is the same. So if I were to say, and they might do it for reason 1, 2, 3, 4, aside from approach avoidance, arrested emotional development, being triggered dysregulated, not knowing who they are, wanting to be with you, and wanting to be loved and wanting to be validated and all of that, but they're looking for their identity. They want to live through you. They don't know how to be on their own, many, and not all. And so the point is, these cycles, you will be treated worse and worse, and your pain will accrue more and more. And I think many people know this out there, but they're still hanging on. And why? So the question to ask yourself, and I work with people in these situations all the time too, is why are you still taking them back? And if your first thought or answer is, well, because I love him or her, okay, but like, what are they showing you in return? And maybe not always purposefully, but they're not loving you back the way you're loving them. And then again, could you have some codependency? Could you be in a situation where this is replicating something from your childhood, whether you're aware of it or not? So that's where people need to do that family of origin work and self-differentiation work on the other side of people with BPD that I'm always talking about. As much as people with BPD, along with other types of therapy, need to also do for what is recovery, they need to do the family of origin work, but the separation individuation has to be done with the family of origin work for people with BPD before they can get to self-differentiation, because first they have to find themselves. So if you are in this situation, please know that with each cycle of on and off again, and you might think, oh, I got this person back, great, this is great, this is going to be great, this is going to work this time. No. And it takes people with BPD so long, seriously, it just is a long process to change, to grow, and some make it to recovery, and some make it to symptom management, but lots aren't even there yet. If they don't do that deeper work, They're not going to be able to attach any better each time they come back, or you let them come back, they hoover back, and they're not going to be able to idealize you again. And they're still kind of there unknowingly for them. They're trying to love and they want this, but they don't realize that they have stuff to work out in order to be able to maintain the commitment, because it's the approach avoidance. It's like the fear of abandonment on the one side of the spectrum, or the one end of their experience. And on the other end, when you get close and things are seemingly going great, boom, another trigger, whole cycle, and it's off again, because then they feel engulfed. Then they feel controlled. And unless until you go to therapy, and this work is deep. So you can't just go to therapy for a year or just take DBT and get this work done in a year. No, it's just not doable that way. They're going to keep coming back to you with everything that's looking good, but it's not really idealization again. And unfortunately, the same thing's going to happen over and over again, because it takes a lot of work. It's not just a year of DBT. It's not just a year or two of therapy to get down to the depths of the fear of abandonment and the engulfment, the approach avoidance conflict, from the rapprochement phase of early childhood development that's arrested, wherein is to also they didn't separate, individuate. So that's why when they are with you, it's like so good, because they're merging with you. Because people with BPD by and large are also codependent, and they merge with you, and it feels so great. But then still they have all the same, emotional landscape of what's going to trigger them to emotional dysregulation. And largely, it's not only the attachment style being very avoidant or anxious avoidant or anything but secure, right? They don't know how to attach, so they're attaching more from a childlike place, unknowingly. And the other thing about this is that they definitely might have good intentions, but they can't carry them out because they're really stuck with the approach avoidance conflict. So it's like, I'm approaching, I'm hoovering back, this is what I want, absolutely, and it's what they believe. And then, because the abandonment, whatever, even if they left you, they feel abandoned, and then they come back and, okay, good. They've dealt with the what they're suffering on the pain of the abandonment, or the fear of it, but the fear of it starts as soon as you get back together. And then the closer you get and the better it is. Then their engulfment comes in, the other side of it, the other end of this, what's happening for people with BPD. So between approach avoidance, between fear of abandonment and fear of engulfment, these relationships just really can't work out. And so if you allow someone to hoover you back, I'm sorry to say, but based on 30 years of working with clients, and what's been reported to me by many, many people who've been in relationships with people with BPD and who've taken them back a few times or once or a couple times or more, it's just going to be more pain and more pain and more pain. And so people with BPD need to figure that out if that's the situation for them, but they may take a long time if they ever figure that out. Some, not all, right? And so you have to see where that person is. Do they know they have BPD? Do they acknowledge it? Are they trying to get therapy or not? Which isn't even a reason to say that something could work out, because they have to make the changes. And then I think it's fair to say that people who allowing themselves to be hoovered back, wanting still to be with this person, understandably, and yet really, because they're hurting you and they're leaving you on a dime, and you don't even know what just happened, and they're out the door again, or you don't even know what just happened, and in many cases they're raging at you again, or they just take off and don't return your calls and don't say goodbye, or don't tell you that something is over in their mind and you're waiting for them, and where did they go? And so every time the cycle of on and off again, when you're devalued to the point, it's not only the devaluation of you, it's rejection of parent, that your representation of for them subconsciously. Each time you go around this cycle of on again, off again, the treatment that they give you, the way they treat you, and what happens is going to cause you more and more pain, and you're going to be getting more and more damaged, more and more wounded. So you have to ask yourself, why do you continue to let this happen? And I know it's a tough question. I work with people all the time. I work with clients to help them figure this out. Because, you might know a lot up here. You might be able to say, well, I do it because of this. I do it because of that. I do it because of, okay. But there's something going on for you deeper emotionally that you need to understand more about. so that you won't stay in these cycles. Because honestly, in all my years of working with people with BPD, people who've been the loved one of somebody with BPD, like in relationships I'm talking about here, right? But none of these, I never had a client come back or later say, well, I went back with that person again, worked out. Usually I'm working with clients, they might cycle back once or twice or 3 times during the process of working with them until they realize, wow. And then we talk about what's going on. People really need to be able to stop these cycles of being hoovered again. And it's difficult because you're having cognitive dissonance, all kinds of things going on. You still love them. Everything was so good if I had a nickel for every time someone told me this, I'd be a millionaire, right? And I'm not a millionaire or anything like that. But when it's good, it's great. But when it's bad, it's horrible. Ask yourself if you think you can go through that one more time. And people have hope that's kind of false hope, and people love. And so, but are you loving in the healthiest way for you, if you're the loved one of someone with BPD and this is happening, these cycles? You really need to get yourself out of the cycles. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. That with it, you never, after the initial devaluation and the cycle and then a relationship breakup, you're not going to get re-idealized. So that's not what's happening. It's just a sort of a coming back to what feels comfortable to them, to what they really want, kind of like, you as object other parent representative, and they don't know that. And then the very comfort and the very love and everything they're seeking, then when they get it, well, they don't know how to handle it, and they got engulfment, and they feel controlled, and the stress builds, and they don't know why. And it does go back to what happened to them in their childhood, perceived or actual. And the next thing you know, you're just going around the circle again. So the treatment that people get from people with BPD, many, in these on again, off again relationship cycles, the cycles speed up, and the way that the person with BPD acts gets more erratic, and everything happens faster. And you get hurt more and more each and every time. And like I've said in another video, check out my video, have you been ghosted by a borderline? Can you be re-idealized, I think is what it's called. Something similar to that. Because you really can't be. And a lot of people think they can be, and they can recapture who they thought that person was. But clearly when you fell in love with that person with BPD, and I'm not saying they're all the same, then if you're in a situation of the hoovering and the on and off relationship, you kind of are getting another picture of who they really are or aren't yet, but they're not who you thought they were. So you have to really think about that, because the cognitive dissonance is huge. You got your feelings, you got love, you want to be with them, but you have to listen to your head that's going, but wait a minute, this person isn't who I thought they were. And why is all this chaos and drama happening? And this is really painful. And then there's that hope that you have each time they come back. That's really false hope. Hope that was helpful. Take care.